Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is J.R. Moore coming to you live from deep in the mountains of the Missouri Ozarks. On Friday, the 29th day of September, yes, the 29th day of September, year of our Lord 2017, welcome to the John Moore Show. Prepper tip of the day. Here it is. I want to encourage all of you to take an inventory. We got a weekend coming up. Hopefully you have some discretionary time. Take an inventory of all your preparatory supplies and equipment, food, water, medical supplies, communications equipment, all your supplies and equipment. Put it in writing. If you don't take the inventory in writing, it's not real. And then once you've got that inventory, review it, determine what things need to be that you're missing, you need to add to it. Anything that's been damaged needs to be replaced, and so on and so forth. So that's your prepper tip of the day. We have a patient waiting in the green room, my friend, Mr. Tom Berryhill. Tom is the gentleman who took the time and made the effort beginning more than half a century ago, when he was just a youngster, to become a licensed ham radio operator, which he has been for slightly more than half a century. And we're going to be talking about emergency survival communications, but I'm going to begin the discussion with an observation about this thing with the football players refusing to stand for the national anthem. Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, John.
Most people aren't aware of this, but I'm going to begin making people aware of it, that the United States Code, which is the law of the land, requires all persons, when the national anthem is being played, to stand at the position of attention with the right hand over their heart, and men not in uniform have to remove their hat with their right hand and hold that hat over their left shoulder with the hand being over the heart. That's federal statute, which means the U.S. attorneys in the various districts of the United States, Tom, could order U.S. Marshals to arrest anybody not doing that during the national anthem being played. So they could potentially be at the football stadiums with about 40 pairs of handcuffs and arrest all the football players and anybody else who doesn't stand for the national anthem and take them into custody. I don't believe it's going to happen, but I would love to see it happen. And of course, the president could order the various U.S. attorneys and the U.S. Marshals to do that, and I would love to see him do so. What do you think, Tom?
Well, I agree, John, but can you imagine the backlash? Unfortunately, that's what we would experience if that event took place.
Well, if people don't like this country and like our laws, there's more than 100 other countries they can move their residents to. But this is our country. These are our laws, and there's consequences for not following laws. And yes, I agree with you. Absolutely. There would be pushback. The mainstream media, the liberals, the Democrats would be outraged. And it's a big so what, in my opinion. It needs to happen. Not that it's going to, but it should. Tom, the various situations regarding Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Irma continue and will go on for many months. I doubt there's much communication coming out of Puerto Rico above and beyond ham radio, is there?
Well, I don't know exactly what commercial systems have been restored or temporarily installed in Puerto Rico, but I do know that a lot of the ham operators are providing HF communications. Since it is an island away, from the mainland, there's going to be quite a gap, and they have recognized that the HF systems are probably about the best at this time until they can get satellite systems up and running, and maybe there could be some cable systems, underwater cables connected. I don't know about that exactly, but at this time the HF is really the way to go. And then once you're online in a particular local area where there's maybe some search and rescue going on, that's where the low power HTs, portable units, and mobile units will be put into operation. because they work the best for short-range local areas. With the HF, which is the short-wave spectrum, picking up the long-haul communications back to the mainland and other nearby islands. That's, as far as I know, that's what's going on there, to the best of their ability.
Right. Well, it's difficult, and being able to power up these, get their batteries recharged is certainly an issue. I want to emphasize something when talking about batteries just a moment. It doesn't apply so much to communications equipment, but it does apply to some communications equipment, and that is any piece of equipment. It takes a battery. If you're going to put in storage, long-term storage, and not use it, those batteries need to be removed, don't they, Tom?
Yes, battery leakage is a terrible thing on electronic equipment. Many times it can't be cleaned out and operation restored, but well, I'll tell you, if it gets into the circuit boards and the components, it's a mess. It's a real mess. Right,
and a mess that would be beyond the capabilities of most average human beings to really clean up and mitigate, wouldn't it?
Yes, that's true, and the corrosive chemicals from those batteries will actually deteriorate and etch away the circuit board traces, the metallic traces on the boards, just dissolve them, and then they fail to work, and it's very difficult to restore at that point.
Absolutely. Well, that's your heads up, ladies and gentlemen. Anything you're putting in long-term storage, not going to be using it for a while, remove those batteries, and then nothing can happen. And when I do this, in my concealed carry training time, I have electronic earmuffs, which most of my students don't know even exist, let alone have had in our head. They're really neat on one hand, but I had in the past, years ago, 10 years ago, neglected to remove batteries from those electronic earmuffs, and they were just destroyed. They could not be used anymore except as regular earmuffs. So what I do to keep everything together, I'll and this applies to many different things, I'll take a 1-gallon Ziploc bag, remove the batteries and whatever is used to hold the batteries in there, and just put everything together inside the Ziploc bag, so it's all together in one place, and nothing's going to get misplaced that way. And that's a smart thing to do with anything that requires batteries. If you're going to have little covers that cover up the batteries, and if you lose one of those little battery covers, you're pretty much not going to get it replaced, are you, Tom?
No, and people will sometimes write the manufacturer and need that battery cover, only to find out the only way to get it is to buy another entire piece of equipment. So, don't lose the cover.
Right.
And one more comment on batteries, John. You know, I keep plenty of batteries on hand, and I'll buy the larger size packages of AAA, AA, C, and D batteries. But you really need to rotate those out. Take the oldest ones, use them first, and then purchase replacements. What I've noticed with some of the battery packages, before they were ever even open, after sitting on the shelf for a while, some of those batteries actually started to leak. They had never been used. And yes, they started to leak, and it's like the old saying, one bad apple spoils the rest. Well, that's exactly what happened. I was only able to salvage a few batteries out of the entire package. So check them once in a while and get those, any that are starting to leak, get them out of there, clean up the container, and put the rest back in. But keep an eye on that. It's very important.
Well, this whole topic was something I think we need to address a bit in more depth. Now, somewhere I read, Tom, that if you take regular batteries such as AA's, AAA's, and so forth, C's, D's, that if you keep them in a freezer, that will slow down the chemical reaction, and they will be preserved longer. Do you have any comment on that?
It sure seems to be the case, and it's not a bad idea. They're rated for low temperature use anyway, so anything that will prolong the life would be very wise to do. So, yes, a freezer, even a refrigerator, is better than ambient temperature in the house. Yeah, put them in cold storage. That works good.
Now, there's also, when it comes to rechargeable batteries, there's the original rechargeables were NiCads, nickel cadmium. Now we have the nickel metal hydride, which is far superior for the following reason: they don't develop a memory. And when it gets to the nickel metal hydride is what I'm trying to say. Nickel metal hydride. There's low self-discharge, LSD, low self-discharge batteries. All rechargeable batteries will have a self-discharge rate. So once it's fully charged and sitting there on the shelf or in the fridge, it will immediately begin self-discharging. That's just the nature of rechargeable batteries. What you want are the low self-discharge ones. They will hold a charge longer after they've been charged than the other type batteries. There's a lot to this battery technology, isn't there, Tom?
Yes, there really is, and it's the internal leakage. There's a little bit of current leakage inside the battery that allows it to discharge on its own. So, yes, look at the discharge rates, and if there's a type available that's low self-discharge, that's the one to get. And, John, I never did care much for those nickel-cadmium batteries. Boy, those things, they would develop the memory, as you mentioned, and they also had a flaw where they would develop internal, like, minute microscopic whiskers that would short out some of the cells, and we would zap those things with high voltage and everything to blow those whiskers out of there and try to restore the batteries. It was always a battle to keep those things going. When they did work, they worked pretty good, but boy, once they developed that memory or those internal short circuit whiskers, you had a problem on your hands, and they were quite expensive back then.
Right. Well, of course, 40 years ago, it's all we had. There was no second choice. I've changed out and got rid of all my NiCad batteries and switched out everything to nickel metal hydride. And a good quality nickel metal hydride battery can be recharged, they claim, 1,000 times. I've never kept count or done that. Do you have any follow-up on that, Tom?
Well, I don't know. You almost have to look at the manufacturer's specs for that particular battery, but I have read things like that, and that wouldn't surprise me. The expense, if you amortize that out over the 1,000 discharge cycles, it could be very economical. I think they work good. There's a lot of new lithium-based batteries that are quite good, but some of the early types had problems where they would actually short out and start fires. Of course, we all heard about laptops catching on fire and cell phones catching on fire and so on. So you have to pay attention to that. But I think they have a lot of that under control for that type of technology. But the nickel metal hydride, I think, works pretty good. John, as much as I really don't care for HT radios, I do have several that I use around here, and I keep them on a trickle charger all the time. Because another thing to take into consideration is that when many of these battery packs are discharged all the way down to nearly zero, that really depletes their lifespan. They won't last as long, and it's really wise to keep them on a trickle charger at least several times a week or times per month if you're going to not use the radio or piece of equipment frequently. Just at least keep it on a trickle charger part of the time.
I have to admit, I may be a bit behind the curve. I don't know if rechargeable lithium batteries are available in the common AAA, AA, Cs, and Ds. I simply don't know. Do you have any knowledge on that topic, Tom?
I don't know either, because I've only used those in laptop computers, the ones that came with the computers. I think they are. There's some very small coin cell types like that are also available, and I know a lot of the ham operator guys will take those small coin cells and put them in series and parallel configurations and build up their own battery packs, custom made. So there's a lot of that going on. You can go on eBay and find a lot of these various cells and different sized batteries of all these various technologies available at pretty attractive pricing. I would think Amazon would be a good supply also. So it's good to look into that, learn more about it. But right now I'm using nickel metal hydride, and they work quite well for my applications.
Well, good. And I assume you keep a good supply on hand. Probably, how many would you keep on hand?
Well, for the Motorola portable radios that I use, I have quite a few of those radios. Actually, I keep the batteries out of them, and then I leave the battery itself in the trickle charger. Right now, I think I have 4 or 5 of those on trickle charge right now, and I only have 3 radios that I use frequently. And, you know, John, where I put these to use is if you're traveling and you're following another car, you can give the lead car one of these HTs and then maybe 1 or 2 other cars, so you can stay in constant touch. John, you know, in these rural areas where we live, that the cell phones don't always work that good, plus you have the foliage and just the terrain will make them cut in and out, and it's not always reliable in a rural area. Some of these back roads, there's just no coverage at all. So we use the HTs, and I use the UHF 450 megahertz, and that's what we're using. And you can put those on GMRS frequencies, the FRS Family Radio Service, and they work quite well. You can also use them in the ham band. And I like the larger HTs. I don't like these little tiny Chinese-made units. I mean, they're so small. They're actually too small, if you ask me. That's my opinion. Some people like the real tiny ones. I don't. I like the larger Motorola units with the largest size battery pack you can get. Some of the radios come with a relatively small battery pack, and you can get the larger battery pack. Always get the larger battery. That way you can
always,
charge.
You're right.
Always. Right. And another good thing to do is get a cord that allows you to plug it in the cigarette lighter socket in your car or truck, and get a mobile setup for charging. Works quite well.
You're right. We got a break. Stay tuned. The call number is 800-313-9443. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman. We are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday the 29th of September, visiting with Tom Berryhill. We're talking about emergency communications. Tom, we got a caller on hold here. We got Glenn in Philadelphia. Good morning, Glenn.
Good morning, John. Good morning, Tom. Hi. Wanted to make a point about sports, but then to get onto a radio topic here. About this NFL thing and the sports and the kneeling and all that kind of stuff. As far as I'm concerned, the NFL and Major League sports owners and players have been duped into becoming politically activistic, and that this is tantamount to a wildly successful attack by the New World Order on the national culture. This is a part of the culture war. It's designed to create chaos and contention. It'll drain the sports financially, and it's just a real blow to our culture and the cultural identity. And even the guy who called you yesterday, John, disparaging sports, to me, I sounded very much like a shill for this operation.
Well, I know Paul, and I know he meant well, and I believe he was overstating his point, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay.
Glenn? Anything else?
Yeah. It's just watch as the money gets drained and the contention rises. About ham radio, Tom, man, when you just mentioned the little hairs in the NiCad cells, well, you took me for a ride in the Wayback Machine. On one of my jobs, I used to have to use an oscilloscope and a square wave generator to put a voltage across solar cells to either cure them, you pump the voltage across, and either it heals them or it blows them open circuit. It either works or it doesn't.
Yeah, you know what, Glenn? That takes me back a ways, too. In the past, I operated a multi-layer printed circuit plant. We made the green boards that are inside computers and electronic equipment. We didn't put the parts on them. We just made the bare boards. And I'll tell you what. What's that, John?
And
FA-18, and it was
FA-18. Excuse me.
Yeah. The fighter attack FA-18 McDonnell aircraft, and they. Let me tell you, one of the biggest problems is that they use tin plating on a lot of these boards. They were trying to get away from solder, the tin and lead. They wanted to get the lead out of there, and so they switched over to tin. But tin has a characteristic. It's actually a flaw as far as electronics goes, because it grows whiskers. It oxidizes as it ages, and it grows whiskers. And it will those little whiskers will creep across the small spaces between the circuit board traces and short them out. And you had to go through there and use a voltage pulse, a high voltage pulse, and blow those whiskers out. And that's on a board with no parts on it. If there's parts on there, you usually cannot salvage them.
Right, and you can. And solar cells are the opposite. They get little open circuit cracks. So you can put a voltage across them and either heal them or kill them. You got to you go up to your max voltage and either it on the solar cells it kind of melt the cracks together, or in the case of the hairs like you're talking about, it either you either get them out of the way or you blow the whole thing open circuit. Anyway, fascinating.
Well, that was a huge problem with these tin whiskers on many types of equipment, and I know in Europe they don't allow any of that to go on, but the military equipment manufacturers, they're still using the tin lead solder, because it will not. Once you get a little bit of lead in that in an alloy, it will not grow those whiskers. And
or silver from mil-spec a lot of times, I think, but lead got some resistant qualities, but
silver forms a lot of oxide too. Silver isn't always it's really good in RF circuits and coils and things like that, the capacitor plates. But you look at those after they get older, and they're very dull, tarnished. It's a never-ending battle.
I'd like to hold, if I may. One more point.
You want to hold over, Glenn? Hold over. We got a break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. I've worked with men and women involved in the high-end shelters for years. With the Ozark Survival Homestead, you get things you don't get with the high-end shelters. You get a opportunity to be in the bunker, of course. You also get a home, a 60 by 90 lot. You get your storable food, your livestock share, your garden, greenhouse share, your seed bank share. One person to have everything they need, right at $25,000. For a family of three, $37,000. You really need to check this out. It's very unique. At my website, you'll see the Ozark Survival Homesteads on the left side of my homepage. Go there, read that one page, fill out the form with your name, your email address, and your telephone number, and I will forward that to the guys and gals at the Ozark Survival Homesteads. Check it out. You'll be very glad you did. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. We have a special promotion on my show from now until August. If you mail me a postcard, you may get the opportunity to buy an energy cleaner for $70 off retail. $200 of the purchase price goes to Republic Broadcasting. We have a drawing for this promotion every other Thursday. The details are at my website. Just click on the orange sticker on the right side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. Thank you very much for listening, and hope you can get those postcards in. Have a great day.
Corporate.
All right, we are back. Ladies and gentlemen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday the 29th of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. If you're a new listener, there's a lot there. You can spend a lot of time at my website educating yourself, informing yourself, finding some things that are humorous, and maybe a couple of things that might upset you as well. One of our projects that we're doing, as listeners and myself, that's reviewing hundreds of thousands of hours of TV shows and movies going back 60-plus years to locate images of continents with new coastlines. It's a fun project. Doesn't cost you anything. If you already watch movies, already watch TV shows, just keep a sharp eye out. We have the ones that have been located so far listed on my website. Let's just scroll down the left side, and you'll start seeing those listed there. There's more than a dozen at this point. Mostly movies and TV shows that you've heard of, things like Hunger Games, A Beautiful Mind, NCIS, and many others. If you find one, get that to me, that image of a continent with a new coastline, and as a thank you, I get you get your choice of any of my 5 DVDs I produced. Also at my website is energy cleaners for sale. It's my home business. When you place your order, I'm the guy that packs them up and ships them from the little country post office at Cherryville, Missouri. If you buy a mattress pad, I'm the one that reconfigures them and packs them up and ships them as well. It's a healing device. If you have arthritis pain, back pain, joint pain, it will probably help. Not getting a great night's sleep, yep, probably help there also. I use mine every night, and you can also. Only $285, shipping included, American zip codes. Yes, I do take PayPal as well as MasterCard and Visa. Checks can be sent to my address at thelibertyman.com. Here's my toll-free order line, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. We're visiting with Tom Berryhill. We're talking about emergency communications and related topics. And Glenn, you wanted to hold over. What else is on your mind, sir?
Yes. Tom, I was just going to say, if you were talking about batteries and radios, I'm just about to, I've had some Yaesu VX5R HTs in storage that I'm going to be checking out, and these do have lithium-ion batteries, but these are the proprietary battery pack type things, and if they're not working, then I'm going to have to be on eBay looking for third-party knockoffs, to try and replace these. Nickel metal hydride, I find, generally performs almost as well as lithium ion. And John, you mentioned about C's and D's and AA's and stuff like that. Those are available and rechargeable. Some lithium ion, mostly nickel metal hydride, and then some of them you can also get like these fast chargers that do them in like 15 minutes. But you pay the price for that kind of stuff. Those are more expensive. But nickel, anyway, if there's any way to stay away from nickel cadmium and stick with nickel metal hydride or lithium ion, it's definitely the preferred way to do it. But so anyway, I'll be seeing if my these lithium ion batteries survived in storage. So interesting.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Thanks for the call. Tom, I want to talk a little bit about, since batteries have kind of popped up here, lead-acid batteries. Now, lead-acid batteries, in terms of the ones that have liquid sulfuric acid in them, they go bad because the sulfur builds up on the lead plates, incrementally reducing the amount of electricity that can be stored there, don't they, Tom?
That's quite true. There are battery conditioner units that you actually clip across the positive and negative poles on the battery, the connections there, and this thing will put a pulse, it's like a higher voltage pulse on there that will shake that loose or remove that buildup from the plates. You can actually restore a sulfated battery using these. It takes quite a while, but it will work.
Well, the one that the brand that the U.S. Army uses that I'm most familiar with, the brand is Pulse Tech. It's P-U-L-S-E, Pulse Tech, T-E-C-H. And I've been using the Pulse Tech devices for 20 years on my motor vehicles, and my automobile batteries typically last twice as long as most people's. Usually people get about 3 years out of an automobile battery. I typically get 6+ years out of my automotive batteries using the Pulse Tech devices, and they make different types for different applications, as well as the kind you just mentioned, Tom, that will take a battery that has lost most of its useful life and restore that battery to useful life by knocking that sulfur off those lead plates. So they're well worth the money. I haven't looked recently. I haven't bought one in quite a while because they last so darn long. But I found it to be very cost effective to have Pulse Tech devices in all my motor vehicles to keep those batteries squared away.
Yes, and there's one more thing that can be done if you have a lead-acid battery that has removable caps, or many times even the sealed ones. You can pry the top off of there, the rectangular plates that seal off those cells. Pry that off, and there will be caps down in there. You can get those caps out of there and dump the acid. Just turn the thing upside down in a pan, in a plastic pan, or maybe a plastic bucket if the battery's small enough to get down in there, and dump all the acid out. And I know guys, John, I've not done this myself, but I know guys that have taken a garden hose then, and with a not a huge gushing stream, but just a gentle stream of water, they'll hose that battery out, because that sulfate builds up on the bottom of the battery and builds up and then gets into the plates and shorts out the cells. But they'll hose all that out of there and flush out the battery real good, and then filter that acid through a strainer and put it back in the battery, refilling those cells, and then put a conditioner unit on there, like the Pulse Tech that you mentioned, and they'll bring that battery back to full operating condition after it was totally dead. They'll actually bring it back around. So that's something else that can be done if you want to try that. Person could go online and research using EDTA, which is a chelating agent. It's a chemical. It's actually used in the healthcare industry. But anyway, that chemical can be used to also reduce that sulfation that tears up the plates and clogs up the lead plates in the battery. So a lot of people are doing that and flushing them out with EDTA. So that's something else to keep in mind if you do wish to reclaim the battery.
We have some breaking news here. Before we get to the breaking news, I want to caution people. We're talking sulfuric acid here, which can cause severe burns, could cause blindness if it gets in your eyes, severe burns to your skin. If one little drop gets on your clothing, it will just eat through the clothing. So exercise extreme caution dealing with sulfuric acid. And the fumes, of course, you need to be in a well-ventilated area. The fumes themselves are very caustic and very dangerous. So this is nothing to be toyed with when it comes to sulfuric acid. Breaking news is that the United States State Department is pulling 60% of our staff from Havana, Cuba, due to the quote-unquote unexplained incidents. We believe that there's some kind of radio frequency sonic attack taking place on the men, women, and children, the diplomatic corps and their families, with adverse health effects, including hearing loss, dizziness, and nausea. And apparently some Canadian officials have been affected as well. And this plays into your expertise, Tom, sonic attacks. So there would be a subaudible attack, wouldn't it, sir?
Well, quite possibly. I'm not an expert on this, but I do know that radio frequencies have been used with attacks. There's also, John, something called radionics and psychotronics, which is, if you want to read up on that, you would look up a good source would be T. Galen Hieronymus. Dr. Hieronymus made early radionic machines, and he originally lived in the Kansas City area, and he built some early units. I have one of his books, which are very, very, very difficult to find, and that book has some amazing information in it. But they would use these machines to attack people with an energy, a type of energy that's not RF, and it's when used, it can be applied instantaneously throughout the universe. Now, it doesn't need to be reflected back from the ionosphere. You can use this energy on one side of the planet, and it's instantaneously on the other side of the planet. Now, it's hard to believe, but I do know it works. I know people that have worked with it. I don't claim to be any kind of expert on it, but I have made component parts for people that were experimenting with some of these machines. So I'm wondering if that's what they were using, John. And you know, let me just explain one thing that took place with Dr. Hieronymus back in the 1950s. And John, I can supply you with some photocopies of the letters that were written from the people that were conducting these experiments. But a gentleman's orchard, he had some fruit orchards, and they were being attacked by a particular type of caterpillar. And no matter what they did, they couldn't get rid of these caterpillars. And Dr. Hieronymus said, send me some of those caterpillars and take a photograph of your orchard and send those to me. So hundreds of miles away, Dr. Hieronymus takes these photographs and these dead sample caterpillars that they mailed to him and put them in the machine, tuned into it, dialed into the frequencies or the energy signature of the photograph. Now, this is just a photograph of the orchard and these dead caterpillars, and then he broadcast back the signal, the energy signal that would be needed to rid that orchard of the caterpillars, and it worked. And he received a letter back from the owner of that property and said that the caterpillars just fell out of the trees, and they haven't seen a live one since. So I'm wondering if they're using psychotronics or a type of radionics. I'm wondering if they're doing that, John, and what would prevent them from setting up large antenna arrays in adjacent buildings and just direct very high power microwave energy at them? It would be like putting somebody in a microwave oven, maybe at a lower level, but enough to cause serious physical harm.
Well,
hard to say.
Well, it is hard to say. We need to remember that Cuba is a client state of both Russia and China, which theoretically would give them access to the same technology that Russia and China has, and the technicians to operate it. So it may be, it's possible our intelligence agencies, FBI, CIA, have determined what's being done, but they just haven't talked about it publicly. I think there's a high likelihood of that. What do you think?
Yeah, John, I agree. We just don't know. But yes, radio frequency attacks are used. There's no doubt about it. It can take some very high power levels to accomplish this. Most likely, it would be in the microwave region. A microwave oven works around 2.6 gigahertz, and they use very high power, 600 to 1,000 watts or so, and that's what that frequency penetrates tissue and will cause oscillations in the tissue, which, of course, the friction from that causes the heat that cooks the food on the inside all the way to the outside. And most likely they're using something like that if it is an actual RF type of signal. That would be easily detected as well. They would use spectrum analyzers to to just look at the various frequencies that in that area and just see if there's any high-level signals coming in. If that's not happening, then it could quite likely be a radionics type of attack. Hard to say.
You want to explain radionics?
Well, I did earlier with what Dr. Hieronymus did. Anybody
that's right,
wants to?
Okay, gotcha.
Dr. Hieronymus, John, that technology is fascinating. It's like anything, it can be used for health reasons, and that's what Dr. Hieronymus focused on. He that man kept every shred of paper I think he ever came across, and so much of it was reproduced in his book. Letters from the 40s and 50s from physicians, medical doctors that would write to him, and they'd say something like, that machine worked quite well. Mrs. Smith had a large tumor, and it dissolved and went away in less than a month. And many other people with similar diseases, we cured those in a very short period of time. And enclosed is my check for 3 more machines. And Dr. Hieronymus was selling his machines. He came under attack, of course. And then another one is Wilhelm Reich. You might want to read about him. He was imprisoned for his work. He was modifying the atmosphere using orgone energy. That's another one to look up, ORGONE, orgone energy. You can read about Wilhelm Reich, and he had books published. I know that his books were, we have freedom of speech, John, but his books were burned, destroyed by court order. I think it was around 56 or 1957. He also was found dead in his prison cell just days before he was to be released. I don't think they wanted him back out in the population. So if you just search those subjects, radionics, orgone energy, and so on, you'll have plenty of information to read. It's quite amazing. And of course, John, we all know about Reif, Dr. Reif, and his technology, and of course he was destroyed because of his work that was quite successful, and the medical establishment didn't care much for him, so they took care of him as well, and he died as a pauper and an alcoholic. So they destroyed that man. That's what happens when you develop these types of technologies.
You get too close to the truth, stuff that will really work and help people. Well, they're going to kill you, basically, aren't they?
That's right. That's right. But I think anybody could do their own research and learn plenty by just looking up those names and those technologies. So they'll have plenty of reading to do, and it will be quite amazing. So it's really an education.
Absolutely. Well, okay. Well, we're talking about a lot about power supplies, and clearly, obviously, in the absence of power, you're not going to talk to anybody on the radio, are you?
No, it takes quite a bit of power. I know on the HF systems, portable units, John, the military backpacks. Well, there's the music.
Here's our last break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. J.R. Moore here on Friday the 29th of September. Well, Tom, we covered quite a bit of important information for people that will help them in many ways to accomplish their goals, whether it's communications or otherwise, because our lives are just full of devices that take batteries, aren't they, sir?
That's very true. And to wrap up on the how much battery power is required, I was commenting on the military backpack units used out in the field. John, when you were in Vietnam, those those small PRC units were only about 2 or 3 watts. They were very low power, and I believe they used 24-volt batteries. Most of the military stuff was 24-volt. And the HF units, now those were VHF, but the HF units that would work on the shortwave bands, they're typically 20 watts, 20 or 25 watts. It's been found that you don't need huge amounts of power to operate especially on a regional basis. Now, if you're talking internationally, you might want a little more power, but a lot of people would be amazed to learn that most of the ham radio conversations on the shortwave bands, even international communications, is conducted around 100 watts of power. Not everybody uses high power, and the ham operators are limited to 1.5 kilowatts. But they typically we use a 100-watt transceiver, and that works just perfect, with a lot of the portable units being as low as 5 watts. And the military always found that 20 watts was about the right amount. The batteries didn't weigh too much, and the power level was sufficient for their regional communications. And that's what I focus on, is the regional uses of HF. And so a 20-watt radio is perfect, and even a 5-watt radio works quite well. One of the low-power units that I like the best is a Yaesu FT817. That is a very nice unit, and it will work on the shortwave and the VHF, UHF bands. So it can be AM, FM, Morse code, which is CW, that stands for continuous wave, and FM. It works all the different modes, and it's a real handy unit. It's very, very small, and it can be used in a backpack with a small portable battery. They do have a battery pack that fits right inside that radio, John, but it's not going to give you very long life. The charge doesn't last very long because it's so small. But an external battery, a small battery that you could even buy at a farm supply store, will power that radio for several days if you don't transmit a lot. Typically, you'll receive 80% of the time and transmit 20% of the time. And if you're operating single sideband, which is used on the shortwave bands, you only draw maximum current on voice peaks. Now, it's the opposite on FM. If you're operating with HTs and mobile units on 2 meters and the UHF and VHF bands, the FM radios draw maximum current all the time. Even if you're not talking, if you just push the microphone button, it's transmitting a carrier, and they draw maximum current. And it's the opposite with a single sideband. It only draws maximum current on voice peaks. So the batteries will last longer on the HF radios.
Now, that Yaesu you like is the Foxtrot Tango 817?
817, and the latest model has an ND, Nancy Delta, behind the model number.
Okay. Tom, thank you, sir. We'll have you back next week. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Okay, we've got a top of the hour break. Stay tuned. We'll be back with Dr. Phil Myers. All right, we're back, ladies and gentlemen. J.R. Moore here, our second hour on Friday, the 29th of September. Prepper tip of the day. I want to encourage all of you to do an inventory of your preparatory items that you have on storage: water, food, your different tape pieces of equipment, medical supplies, and so forth. Make sure everything's properly stored in good condition, ready to be used if necessary. Make sure your inventory is in writing and that you'll fill in any blank spaces that need to be filled in. That's your prepper tip of the day. We have patient waiting in the green room, my friend Dr. Phil Myers, D.C. Dr. Myers is a chiropractic physician living and working in my hometown, St. Louis, Missouri. Easy way to get started with Dr. Myers. Doesn't cost you anything. Here's what you do. You call his office. You set up that first private, no-charge consultation. That office telephone number is 314-878-6868. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, John. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm wonderful, actually, getting great night's rest and following your nutritional advice diligently. How about yourself, sir?
Same here, man. Everything's working great. Good to hear that you're feeling good after your adjustment, too.
Yes, well, that was, Monday, I guess it was, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, seems like a longer time ago than that. I've been really busy.
Well, it's funny. When I work on people, I say right now there's kind of what we call the integration phase, where you have the initial uplifting experience of the work that is done, and then it takes about 3 days for the body kind of say, okay, this is the new energy. I got this now. And sometimes about 3 days is like you feel like the uplifting flow of it all a lot. Sometimes it's a lot sooner for most people, but it's about 3 days. Right.
And Doctor, I want to talk a little bit about the breakdown of men versus women in terms of seeking out your type of healthcare expertise as opposed to allopathic medicine. Would it be a fair statement, Doctor, to say that about 9 out of 10 of your clients are women?
Pretty much, yeah. Yeah, women seem to be, well, not seem to be, they pretty much drive the market force within the healthcare industry.
Not just chiropractic health, but all health.
All health. From the moment I left doing collegiate and professional athletes to go into the private sector with strength training, pretty much I'd say about 80% of my clientele were women, and the rest of it were men.
Right. Well, obviously. Well, these days there are people who don't know what sex they are, I guess, aren't there?
Oh, we don't have to go there. No. we're all working in our own little world, trying to figure out what's going on within ourselves. So, but yeah, the women seem to be driving the workforce a lot, and and especially in the industry of health and wellness and well-being. And it's really easy to understand why. Women are more of that nurturing mother nature experience, and so their brain waves are like that. They're more right-sided brain. They live more in the emotional body. They're more in tune with the innate intelligence of like that mother intuition, that cyclic feeling and experience. Women are very, very, very in tune with that. And then what's happening though is men are becoming that in tuned as well. We're quote unquote leaving the battlefield and coming into the community from a male standpoint, and where we also are expressing the feelings, the thoughts, the emotions, the connectivity to ourselves in nature, instead of even like farming, if you take it from that standpoint, whereas you would think male farming is instead of female farming, you'd think of that way. But basically, the men are starting to also honor their connection to the earth and to what's going on within themselves and their own body and their own health and their own awareness. And so I'm actually starting to see in my clinic more increase in the male population. It is funny though; it always goes the mom, the children, and then the dad comes kind of kicking along. It's kind of funny. Right,
and that's a very predictable scenario that takes place, isn't it?
Oh, big time! Yeah, big time, all the time.
Well, that's okay as long as they get in the door. That's the main thing. Typically men are resistant to any medical attention. They'll put up with pain. I know.
Well, it's change. Men hate change.
Right.
Men are. It's. I have to staying in this space and to embrace the shift, embrace the cyclic change, embrace the shedding of it all. I mean, women's body go from up to down to left and right throughout their life. They're used to it. Men, we're kind of like, they just kind of just show up. So it's kind of experience great change in the body. Men don't traditionally experience that or share that out there, but the male attributes, the male aspect of our strength, of our power, are starting to be really harnessed in that nurturing way instead of the warrior way. And it's a big change for a lot of guys.
No, it is, and I'm going through that change myself, of course, and it's been good. The warrior part of my persona hasn't gone away. On one hand, on the other, the warrior part of my persona is being put in a better, more rational perspective. Is how I would analyze it.
That's awesome. Yeah, and it's cool too, because what happens when men start doing that, they get out of that from a physiological standpoint. Men are so inundated to be in that high adrenaline and then kick off of it, then knowing that the war is going to be maintained, they have to eventually continue kicking in cortisol all the time to make sure that they're in prepared mode. And then they can kick on adrenaline when they need, but then they still ride cortisol pretty at a higher state than what you traditionally need at all. And so what that does is it definitely plays on the muscle structure. That's why the men have the bigger muscle systems, but they're more rigid and tight. As we get older, because we start losing that flexibility and everything. But that's because of that high cortisol. But when the men start dropping out of the have to be in warrior phase, I have to be on phase to the hardcore protection. Now, what I'm not saying this, and I talked to one of my male clients about this yesterday. It's not that you can't draw your sword and cut the guy's head off in 3.4 seconds. It's just that you don't have to anymore.
Right.
So, and the thing is, anybody that would have been a quote-unquote threat doesn't see you as threatening anymore, but not someone not to fuck with either.
Okay. Need to watch your language here, Doctor.
Oh, sorry about that. But basically it's in that context, though, that we start seeing how the male energy is starting to really shift. And then the cardiovascular diseases, the heart rate variability issues, all the different types of degenerative processes that come from that really start dying off.
That's all good, isn't it, Doctor?
We definitely need a bleeping machine or a delay.
Well, there is a delay, but I don't know exactly how that works. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you got a question or comment, give us a call at 800-313-9443. We'll be glad to entertain that question or comment. Having the cortisol not kicked in all the time would be a tremendous value in terms of overall long-term health, wouldn't it, Doctor?
Well, absolutely. It calms down. You don't use your blood sugar, insulin levels like you have to. You're more stable in your metabolism. You actually have a reserve of potential energy building in you continuously instead of how it has been basically stolen from the stress cortisol response. And so it's always stealing your vitamin, your minerals, your enzymes, your fatty acids. And that's one of the biggest reasons why we're always needing these extra nutritional things. But as we start dropping that, then the overall need for such super-powered, high-density nutritional supplementation won't be so much. You'll get it from your glass of water instead of needing such high mega superfoods. And so your body uses energy, will start utilizing energy so differently. It'll be it's quite amazing. It will go from basically coal-burning energy to free energy.
Well, that's a process I'm going through right now, isn't it, Doctor?
Absolutely. And every single person on this planet is going through this. Some are more at an accelerated rate than others, and that's what my work does for everybody. It's an acceleration because it's all happening to us right now. There's not a single biological human being or entity on this planet that's not going through this super change. this supercharging of where we're letting go of old systems, letting go of old belief structures, letting go of old biology, even letting go of the old genetic code, and re-entering into a whole new dynamic of energy, of stability, of power, of instability and focus. Because to be free and be supple and to be loose and to be light, that's where we're all heading even more, even at any age. It doesn't matter if you're 80, 90, 40, 20, 10. That suppability is open to you. You just need to start doing some of the work, and you'll so accelerate it. It's not that hard. It's super easy to do. I mean, literally, you can do it just by sitting here talking and listening to us on the phone. We've gone through some of the breathing techniques that you can do. We've talked about the sunning and cupping that you can do. We've talked about the coherency of your heart and your breathing. Oh, no, we haven't done that. That one's a fun one. Let's do that one. So here's the thing. So when a person's breathing, we breathe in and out. But what we don't notice a lot of times is the breath is already happening. And so what you get to do is just sit there and watch your breath come in and watch your breath come out. And then as you watch it, and the more you watch it, you'll start noticing you don't have to actually be in control of it. It's actually doing it itself. You become the big-time observer of the breath. Then you get to breathe with the internal breath, and you breathe out with the external breath. You become a co-participant in the consciousness. Because now what you did is you stepped back and you became the observer, and you saw the breath come in, and you saw the breath come out. Then the feedback loop, by that visual feeling and seeing, you then breathe with it and breathe out with it. And that connected the feedback loop. That feedback loop is what consciousness is. So consciousness no longer has to be this woo-woo esoteric. Those consciousness people, they're weird.
Right.
Even the TED Talk ones, they're even weirder. But you don't have to think that anymore. The truth of the matter is all of us are conscious by the mere fact of feedback. You see, you taste, you touch, you feel, you feedback. That's consciousness itself. And so when you're listening to the breath and participating with that breath, you're increasing consciousness through awareness. And so there's your differential. A lot of people think when people talk about awareness work, they're really talking consciousness. Or when people talk consciousness, they're thinking they're talking about awareness. Awareness is the observation of the participation, which is consciousness. So when you start doing that, you really, even if you didn't even know any of that, forget all that stuff that I just rambled on about.
Right.
Just by the mere fact of listening to the breath and participating with the breath, you're bringing it into a state of that coherence, that consciousness, that feedback that you're now aware of. That calms the mind down so well. It's like peaceful, like nature, like birds just chirping in the distance, or crickets at night, or the fireflies just beeping along, and you just are able to just sit there. Ever just sit there at a fire at night or in the morning with the sunrise and just feel it? That's the same thing. instead of having to wake up in the hustle and the bustle and the go, 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 and the fight, 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 and I'm going to kick your butt and take your name, and I'm going to conquer all over this. Let that go. And from a male standpoint, really hard.
It is. It is. No doubt. But it's certainly it's a worthwhile goal, isn't it, Doctor?
Oh, it's a worthwhile birthright. It is your birthright to be able to do that.
Hold that thought, Doctor. We have a break. Call number is 800-313-9443. We'll be right back.
Folks, we're living in a world the likes of which we've never perceived any clearer than we do now. The plan for global governance has been in the works for generations and would have likely been achieved by now but for the fact that the globalists left open their Achilles heel. With all their tools, Federal Reserve System, fiat currency, no child left behind, and then Common Core education introduced to our schools to dumb us down, vaccines, pharmaceuticals to lobotomize us, GMO foods, insertion of compromised or bought and paid for politicians, judges, mainstream media propaganda, all pieced together like a puzzle designed to ultimately bring the world under submission. But with all their strategy, they forgot one thing: knowledge. And knowledge is power. With knowledge, their bombardment is nullified. Folks, with that, as brilliant and knowledgeable as you've become, among the wisest audience of any radio audience in the world, and you are, I want you to take a moment to reflect and ask yourself, how much of that knowledge did I obtain from Republic Broadcasting Network? How high has my consciousness been raised since I've been a listener? How fast am I now able to discriminate truth from fake news by being a Republic Broadcasting listener? How clear am I now able to see the world since I've been listening to RBN? Ask yourselves those questions, folks. Then ask yourself, what is that knowledge worth to me? Like my morning coffee, how would I survive without it? A voice of truth in a sea of lies. Do we not all need to make sure it survives? Like public broadcasting, we are now finding we can only survive with listener support. Censorship, advertisers being attacked, truth itself being attacked. It's the only way through this. We at Republic Broadcasting humbly ask you to become a supporter. Look at your budget and make a determination of what Republic Broadcasting is worth to you and what you can afford on a monthly basis. Go to republicbroadcasting.org and pledge $20, $30, $40, $50, if possible, $100 a month or more if it's affordable. Click the donate button and become a regular monthly donor. Assure both us and yourself that Republic Broadcasting truth will continue to flow like that morning coffee. The network thanks you.
Ladies and gentlemen, J.R. Moore here. It's taken 3 years before I could offer the inter-shelter domes for sale. During those 3 years, several different governments and militaries were taking all their production. The inter-shelter dome homes may be just what you've been looking for to provide affordable, energy-efficient, permanent, and attractive housing. These dome homes are prefabricated units that can be assembled in a few hours by 2 men with a ladder and simple hand tools. Check out the photos of these dome homes built in the Arctic, on tropical beaches, in suburban areas, and in forests. All the details, many photographs, and the pricing of the dome homes are listed on the left-hand side of my homepage at thelibertyman.com. I think you'll find these homes are not only attractive, but they're energy efficient, and a bonus. You can disassemble them and reassemble them as many times as you feel you need to. Pretty great, huh? Something that's very, very unique. Check them out at my website at thelibertyman.com. All right, we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday the 29th September, visiting with Dr. Phil Myers. Yes, it's easy to get started with Dr. Myers. All you got to do, call his office, set up that first private, no-charge consultation on the telephone, at area code 314-878-6868. Let's continue, Doctor.
So that's the first part. The second part is listening to the heart beat. Now, that's already doing it. But do you feel it? Not really. As you start listening and feeling the breath, and as you start breathing with the breath, that calmness comes to you to a degree where all of a sudden you actually start feeling the beating and the pressure and the pulsation and the relaxation of the heart beating itself. Then all you're got to do is, again, remember, you're not breathing. You're breathing with the natural breath. So then all you need to do is listen to how the heart beats with the breath that you're participating in. And as you listen to how the heart beats to the breath that you're participating in, you'll start noticing that you're beating with your heart, and you're staying in that cycle. Now, there is zero rules to this coherency that you're going to be participating in. There's no rule that the breath should be one breath per 5 heartbeats or 5 heartbeats per 5 breaths. There's zero rules here. What you're participating in is listening to the chaos being organized instead of trying to control the chaos and organize it the way you think it should be. So by listening to that, you open up the doors to an extremely high level of possibility. How your body can breathe, how it can move, how it can respond. And what happens is you start getting out of the reactionary responses of that fight, flight, fight system and into more of the balanced state of an autonomic system that is then polarized to be equal and not so off-kilter on one side of the equation where it has been in fight, flight, fight. Even some people in the parasympathetic side, the rest, repose, and regeneration, they can get there, but there's still an imbalance in that side as well. That's a whole different story. But on this side, all you need to do is just listen to the heartbeat and listen to it moving with the breath that you're participating in. And let go. And the more you let go, the more you become balanced in the storyline of it. Your favorite author, The Power of Your Subconscious Mind, tapped into this knowledge eons ago.
That's right. That book was published half a century ago. And our book we're talking about, ladies and gentlemen, is titled The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy. I believe the publication date was 1966, maybe a year or two different. But it's a free download at my website, and it's an excellent book to help people achieve their goals and gain the focus, gain the clarity they need to achieve any goal they're choosing. Right, Doctor? Absolutely. Here's our bottom of the hour break. Call number is 800-313-9443.
You are tuned in to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Visit our website by going to republicbroadcasting.org.
J.R. Moore here. I've worked with men and women involved in the high-end shelters for years. With the Ozark Survival Homesteads, you get things you don't get with the high-end shelters. You get a opportunity to be in the bunker, of course. You also get a home, a 60 by 90 lot. You get your storable food, your livestock share, your garden, greenhouse share, your seed bank share. One person to have everything they need, right at $25,000. For a family of three, $37,000. You really need to check this out. It's very unique. At my website, you'll see the Ozark Survival Homesteads on the left side of my homepage. Go there, read that one page, fill out the form with your name, your email address, and your telephone number, and I will forward that to the guys and gals at the Ozark Survival Homesteads. Check it out. You'll be very glad you did. Thank you very much. All right, we are back, listen, we're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 29th of September. My website is thelibertyman.com. That's thelibertyman.com. You just heard me mention one of the free downloads there. There's a number of others, quite frankly. One that Dr. Myers should download, and probably won't take it to a print shop, Doctor. It's Matrix 3, Volume 2. It's a reference book, 1,010 pages, and it will help people understand, healthcare professionals and lay people, how the human consciousness is being manipulated by a number of various methods: electromagnetic, nutrition, psychological warfare, and so forth. Free download at my website under free downloads. Also, my website, of course, are energy cleaners. This is my home business. When you place your order, I'm the guy that packs them up and takes them to the Little Country Post Office at Cherryville, Missouri, where the bathroom is a separate building outside. It does have a flush toilet, by the way. And the energy cleaner is a marvelous healing device. That's what it is. If you have arthritis pain, it will probably help. Joint pain, yes, help there too. Back pain, probably help there as well. I use mine every night, and I get a great night's sleep, because that's one of the things we focus on, is getting a great night's sleep. Only $285, shipping included. Initially, when these were first being manufactured, one at a time with a handmade wood Amish cabinet, they were $3,000 a piece. Now they're only $285 a piece, shipping included to American zip codes. Be sure and check out the factory-made fitted mattress pads to go with the energy cleaner. It's a great combination. I do take PayPal, MasterCard, Visa. Checks can be sent to my address at thelibertyman.com. Here's my toll-free line 24 hours a day, 800-592-9543. I say again, 800-592-9543. Visiting with Dr. Phil Myers, D.C., my personal physician. I've not had a pharmaceutical prescription since 1985. I'm well into my fourth decade of no pharmaceutical prescriptions. And if you want to get started with Dr. Myers, here's what you do. Call his office, set up that first private, no-charge consultation at area code 314-878-6868. Doctor, I'm talking back in the early 70s, 1971, 72, I believed chiropractors couldn't do very much for the following reason. They couldn't prescribe pharmaceutical products. So in my very mature 25-year-old brain, I thought that, well, since they can't prescribe pharmaceutical products, what do these guys know? What can they do to help me? I was working out of complete ignorance, wasn't I, Doctor?
You know what? We all go through it. I went through it myself. I was like, wow, these guys are like over-glorified massage therapists. I'm like, yeah, this is crazy. But after a while, when my life was transformed, when I met my first chiropractor that does the type of work that I do, it was astonishing to see, like, wow, my body has this much potential to do these types of things, and I was sold. And that's the cool part. is as like from a chiropractor standpoint, from the education standpoint, seeing that all that I've been able to see, it's amazing to see how we all know the song. The head nose connected to the knee bone, but it's more like the ears connected to the pinky toe. But you start seeing the intricacies of the genetic code imprinted on every area of your body, from the points of your fingers that have literally ports of energy that you're able to tap into, to the tips of your toes with the same ports, that you can literally run these energy lines throughout your body, that we have, that they're called acupuncture points, that literally, that these acupuncture points literally are the connective tissue, fascial, geometric planes of connectivity that made up your thigh, that grew your foot, that grew your nose, that grew your ears, that grew your eyes, that is that energy itself, is just the coolest thing. And to know that you can physically touch it and move it around and massage an organ or touch an organ here, or do that, or move a muscle here, or pick up a weight here and do different cool things, or do a somersault or a cartwheel. These things are possible from that energy. And it just continues to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow. And just from what we were talking about, just the stress release of it all, technique work, you get to experience this body, this movement potential, this energy field, and all the thoughts that come along with it. You get to even surrender all that stuff. And that's that second part, that parasympathetic side, where you are so calm, you're so cool, you're so collected, that you're literally able to feel the compassion that you have for anger, fear, judgment, resentment, shame, even the ones that you had as your own with inside you that you didn't want to take responsibility for. You start becoming more in tune with that, and you get to let that go. And then your sympathetic side, the side that goes, that's outgoing, that's pushing the envelope, that's pushing creation, that's pushing technology, that's pushing consciousness, is doing it in a way that is no longer the man on the battlefield, but the energy of expansion. And it changes everything. And that's what, I'm not being biased here, but we kind of started talking about why women versus men aren't doing this work, or right, why they should. It's because the men still believe they have to be on the battlefield. We'll have another conversation about you girls later. But from a guy's standpoint, this is really important to hear and learn, and to know that you have such great potential to literally kick butt and take names, and also be the Zen master all at the same time. We definitely see that in...
Right.
Go ahead.
I say one does not preclude the other.
No, they don't. We see the struggle of it big time in Western society, Western culture. We see the remnants of the history of the mastery of this in the East, and the teachings of the art forms of the healing arts, and that understanding of this great energy field that literally creates your body. I used to say it all the time, and I still say it a lot within my practice, because people are always looking at the type of adjustments that I make, and they're like, you're not really moving the bones, or like doing a snapple, crackle, pop type of adjustments that my normal chiropractor uses. I'm like, well, yeah, because it's not the bones. The bones aren't doing anything. They're antennas. They're a beacon of information, but they don't move on themselves. There's something that has to move them. And I go into the muscles, ligaments, and tendons. That their job is to support the structure of the skeleton and to move it in the direction that they're connected to it. But their only job, they only can contract and relax. That's all they can do. That's their only thing.
Right.
And so what makes them contract and relax is the neurological impulse that they're connected to. Is that impulse of a fight, flight, fright, fight nature, or a rest and repose nature? Is it of a I'm going to push the envelope, or am I going to surrender to what I'm experiencing at the moment? It's controlled by that impulse from the nerves. But the nerves are only doing one thing. They're only transmitting that information that came through a couple of those examples. And so what's making the impulse is a field of information. And that field of information is what we're all able to tap into. And as you become the observer of your breath, and as you become the observer of your heartbeat within the observation of your breath that you're participating in, you really tap into a feedback loop of consciousness that is way beyond what you've experienced before. And I literally tell you, you're going to change your life. You're going to have to change your life. In the East, when these practices are implemented, there's really no resistance to the philosophical thought teachings of it all, and even the nutrition of it all. On the West, however, we have a huge amount of resistance. And so what we're starting to see from pretend the females are the East and the males are the West. Right. We're seeing a humongous transference of the West taking on this work. This conversation would be completely different if I was a female practitioner having this conversation. But from a guy doing this work and living this life, and then being the supporter of that work for all of you, that shows that you can do it yourself as well, that it's inbred in you, that you have the ability to do everything that I'm helping you do, you can do it as well. And so, but I got off the battlefield. Trust me, I'm a warrior, big time warrior, and history shows it. And for myself to be able to let go of my warrior, who literally kick butt, take names, to be able to let that go and embrace the surrender that is also my birthright, and to use that warrior energy of my own to push the envelope, but then to also surrender to the envelope. If I'm pushing it, I best make sure that I'm surrendering to its possibility so I can help push it again. And it's like an expansion, but then I surrender to it. From a male standpoint, a very needed, extremely needed thing. Plays on our hearts, plays on our hormones, plays on the gut belly that you have, plays on the cholesterol issues that you're dealing with, the diabetic neuropathies that you're dealing with, the strained vision in your eyes, the low libido, you name it, the prostate cancer, the colon cancer, the cancer, all these different types of things don't ever have to be an issue ever again for anybody. But for men, for specifically in this conversation, don't have to be that. still be the ninja warrior, but an in shape, peaceful warrior.
Right. Well, it's a concept that I encourage men to consider, that they can still retain the qualities of being a warrior if and when they're needed on one hand. On the other, they don't need to be at that, to use a football analogy, on the line, ready for the ball to be snapped all the time, 24/7.
365. It's tiring.
Yeah, you can be on the bench and ready to go out on the field and be the warrior, using the football analogy. You're still the warrior on the bench, the football player on the bench. You're just not coiled up like a spring steel coil, ready to snap when that ball snapped, which I've been there hundreds of times playing football, But I've lived most of my life in that coiled steel mode. I now understand consciously I don't need to be in that coiled steel mode 24/7, 365. I can be the warrior on the sideline, ready to go into instant use if and when ever necessary. Otherwise, I can live my life and be healthier as a consequence. Right, Doctor?
Oh, absolutely. And just to take it even one step further, and here's the coolest part about the warrior being able to truly let go of having to be the warrior in war, is from the analogy, imagine that there is no competition. And the only thing is participation in a game of ability. And it's like it continues to work within themselves instead of competition, you over me, me over you. But there's a symbiotic unity where everything and everybody are working together for the collective whole to be the winner. And so the energy of the surrender of the warrior, of that, the domination aspect of it all, the I win, you lose, you're poor, I'm rich, you're inferior, I'm superior, I look down upon you, you have to look upon me. That whole ideological mentality is a false belief system that no longer has to be played out. And for when the men start owning that, when the men start taking on that, and again, I'm not talking about women in the roles of all that. We're talking about just from a male standpoint conversation. When you guys start taking on this and driving it home, and pushing the envelope and surrendering and pushing and surrendering, you can get all of this just by giving yourself 5 minutes a day of daily practice of listening to your breath, breathing with your breath, and listening to your heart and breathing with that.
Hold that thought. We have our last break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back. J.R. Moore here on Friday, the 29th of September. Doctor, we have a caller on hold here. Excuse me. We have Daniel in Norfolk, Virginia. Good morning, Daniel.
Hello?
You're on the
Hello,
air,
Daniel.
Go ahead.
Okay. Good morning. I know you're coming to the end of the program. Okay. Good morning, John and Dr. Phil Myers. I just wanted to inject a brief question in line with all the things that you've spoken about regarding health and behavior and what a chiropractic health, the psychology of chiropractic health. Now, isn't there an inherent difference in, let's say, a heterogeneous society such as the United States and a homogeneous society such as most Asian nations using Japan or China? And I will take my response off the air. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Doctor, go ahead.
I have no idea what he's talking about.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I really have no idea where the question is coming. What you're looking for in terms of your question, in terms of different societies. So next time, call back a little earlier. I do want to have that type of question again, but I really don't know what you're talking about.
Well, that's unfortunate because he's already hung up. But there's always next week, and we can get him to get more detailed in his question next week.
Yeah, because you can tell he's really thinking about something deep, and I would love to go there. But yeah, I really don't understand the question. That's
okay. Well, he can call your office, of course, at 878.
Absolutely.
314-878-6868, and then possibly get an answer that way. Okay. Well, Doctor, we're near the end of the show here. I want to encourage people to move forward and pay attention to Dr. Myers and pay heed and actually do the things we're talking about, right, Doctor?
Literally, it's going to change your life, and your life is changing right now. So the sooner you jump on board, the easier it's going to be.
That's right. The quicker you get it done, the easier it'll be, and it's a process. It will take a while, won't it, Doctor?
It is, because everybody's going to be at their own level, and it's because there's people out there like me that are like soaking it up every second. Then there's other people that just don't know, and there's other people that are searching. They're trying to find answers, but no matter who you are and what you're doing, you're awesome, and you just need to just continue growing. And if you think you're not growing, then look at how you can recalibrate your life.
Doctor, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Have you back next week.
You too. Bye.
Okay, that's it for the day. That's it for the week. Get your medical supplies, your energy cleaner, your essential oils now while you can, your firearms ammunition. Never, ever give up your guns. Please do have a fun, safe day and weekend, and God bless America.